All right, my clock says 7 o'clock, so we're going to get this recording going and we're going to make this happen. Welcome to our Q&A that we do every Thursday night, except for on weeks when I don't do it. Like Thanksgiving and when I do classes here on the ranch. When I do my boot camp classes, my 3-day classes when family comes to learn everything I know, I don't do it on those Thursdays. And I do about 4 of those a year. And then when the internet doesn't work, I don't do it too. In the last year, I think we've had 4 different times when the internet was down in the evenings because we are in the depths of rural America and sometimes the internet's not as good as it needs to be. Okay, so my book is basically done. I'm waiting for a couple of more blurbs from people. I'm waiting for, blurbs from a couple of scientists. So I sent my book I had 30 people on my list I wanted to send it to before I wrote it to make sure it was a good book. And I had about 15 people respond to me and said, yeah, I will read your book, or no, I won't, because a few of them said they wouldn't, which is fantastic. People are busy and they can't read everybody's book. So that's good. And so I sent it out to the people who wanted me to send it to them. So I sent them a PDF, and there are 2 or maybe 3 more to come back. And so, the book's available on Amazon, but nobody knows that yet unless you see this recording. As I get back these other blurbs from these scientists that I'm wanting to get it back from, I will add those to the book. So that's why I haven't announced it yet, because I want to have those blurbs in there when people purchase it. So in the next couple of weeks, this book is going to be, I'm going to tell people it's ready. So I'm pretty excited about it. Super awesome, man. It took me 40 years to write this book. How old am I? I'm turning 50 this year. I wasn't 10 years old when I started, but I was probably 13 or 14. So almost 40 years went into this book because I wanted to write a book when I was just a kid doing the garden. And I would read all these gardening books. In fact, I hated school. I hated reading. I just wanted to be outside all the time. I wanted to ride horses and chop wood and drive tractors and drive the team of horses and plant pumpkins and grow a huge garden. That's who I was. And so I was like 12 years old before I could read very good at all. And boy, I was a nightmare for my teachers because I wouldn't do anything at school. And so that was awful. And it made it worse because my parents were both public school teachers. So that's pretty funny and ironic. But then by the time I was 14, 15, I had looked at so many gardening books that my parents had that I got excited, and so I was just like, I was reading, nobody really taught me to read very good. I taught myself from reading gardening books because I had to get the information. And my dad, mom, being gardening people and farming people and educators, they had a lot of books they had this one shelf that had like 300 or 400 books that were just classics, just the old books. And then they had this other shelf that probably had 70 books that were gardening books. And then there were another 30 or 40 books about farming and all this stuff. So anyway, I went through those books as a youth, and it was good. It was a fantastic education. And so at that time, 12, 13, 14 years old, I thought, I am going to write a book of my own. And now I'm turning 50 this year, and my book is finally done. So it's pretty great. But over the years, I've sat down to write a gardening book, and I never could because it was like, I don't want to just repeat what all these other people have said, but I had things that were unique to me. So every time over the decades that something would happen, I'm like, okay, I'm going to remember that. And I did. And those things went into this book. So now I have a book, which is, it's a pretty decent effort that went into this. So I'm excited about it. I'm going to move to the next slide and see what the heck it says. This is Charles Dowding right here. Charles Dowding is one of the people that I sent my book to get a review, and he sent this week. So I'm going to read this. So Charles Dowding, the greatest gardener in the world today. He might be the greatest gardener the world has ever seen. Now, obviously, that depends on your opinion. He's from England, and here's what he said. Dear William, I'm delighted that you have written a book, and especially because you are a farmer first and foremost, not a writer or researcher. There are many books about farming by the latter, which lack the necessary practical experience. Therefore, I would say of your book that it's a gem because it comes from the soil and a farming environment. You have an ability to communicate ideas and knowledge. Therefore, the reader will learn a lot. Thank you for the mentions, and I hope the book sells well. Please send us a link about where anyone can purchase it so I can promote it. Isn't that awesome? Charles Dowding. This is like, I don't want to be blasphemous, so I'm not going to be. But in all humility, this is like God saying, I want to promote your book. It's the coolest thing. The market for new books is quite full, so don't be disheartened if sales are slow. On the other hand, you never know. Wishing you a decent start to spring. Here, it's okay without being brilliant, and we have almost too much rain, not enough sunshine. Keep well, Charles Dowding. So that's pretty awesome. So, you know, the appropriate parts of that are going in the front of my book. I'm putting my blurbs in the front. A lot of people put them on the back of the book, but for ebooks and all that stuff, you put them in the front nowadays. And I liked my back cover, so I put these in the front of my book because it's my book, so I'm publishing it the way I want to. I'm excited about it. But good old Charles Dowding. If you don't know who Charles Dowding is, go to YouTube, look him up, buy his books, and read them. And like he said here, you know, thank you for the mentions. That's because I mentioned him several times throughout my book. Along with a lot of other great people. You know, I mentioned a lot of people who have had great influence. Some of the ancient people who are dead now, and some of the greatest scientists alive today. Anyway, it's good stuff. I help people grow food. That is my purpose. That is my mission. I'll be doing this until the day I die. So these are the 9 ways I help people. I've got my YouTube channel. I have my weekly Q&A, which is what tonight is on Thursdays. I've got my Patreon library, $8 a month, and you can get my stuff. I'm a soil laboratory to help you know what your soil is. I do a 17-week boot camp. I've got 4 people signed up for this summer, and I can take 1 more male student. Why a boy? Because I separate the boys and the girls because the housing has to work, you know, for young people. So, yeah, I have room for 1 more boy. If you know anybody, send them to my website, which is on the bottom of the screen here. I have a 3-day boot camp. Our spring boot camp is coming up right now in just a few weeks. And I do consulting if you need help on your farm. If something's not working out for you in the soil health world or the vegetable world or the greenhouse world, growing your own fruits and vegetables, contact me and let's see if I can help you. I mean, I can't help everybody. There's a lot of things I don't know, but there's a lot of people I can help and have helped. And my book is getting reviewed and is ready to go out. And what the heck is number 9? My stupid thing here doesn't show it. I can't see it. I think you guys can see it. Newsletter. Yeah, if you're not on my newsletter, if you don't get my newsletters every few weeks, go to www.georgicrevolution.com and give me your email. And I don't send out tons of emails to drive people nuts, but I do send out emails when something cool is happening. So you may, if it's going to be helpful for you to get my email, then sign up. Yeah, we're going to open this up for questions and discussions. We can go through your questions tonight if anybody has questions. And if you don't have questions, that's totally fine. You don't need to feel on the spot. I do want to point out, spring boot camp is coming up in a few weeks, April 27, 28, 29. Go to my website for details and get signed up for that. I have room for 4 or 5 more people. It's basically full, but if somebody has to come, then please get in and come. My 17-week course That is coming up. It says applications due April 1st. That's in 2 days from now. If you actually want to come to this, call me. This doesn't mean you can't come just because it says that. So I'm going to stop my screen share now. And let's have a discussion about the world we live in. Ezekiel is on here. He's my son. We talk about farming, ranching all the time. We're always talking about the needs that society has right now. And I've been talking to a lot of ranchers, a lot of farmers, a lot of consumers who are not necessarily producers. I've also talked to a lot of entrepreneurs who run businesses. Over the last year, I've been talking to a lot of these people, and I have noticed something that I wanted to discuss tonight. So I don't have any slides for this, but it's an interesting conversation. So feel free to unmute and join the conversation if you want to, but I'm just going to talk about it. But society has a lot of needs right now. We have needs for local butchers. I was on a webinar this morning, and when the webinar was over, I stayed on until everybody leaves, usually, because sometimes somebody wants to talk. And so we had a conversation. I actually didn't say anything, but my business partner and this other person were talking. I was just listening, and it's just so fascinating. So they sell about 40 beef a year straight from the farm, and maybe 10 or 15 lambs or something, and 10, 15 hogs, and 100 chickens. It's kind of what they did in the last year for their meat, so that people can get the highest quality grass-fed, super nutritious meat. And there's a lot of bad raps about meat in the world. And, you know, good quality grass-fed beef has your omega-3s and your 6s are balanced, which is the problem with beef from a feedlot. Your omega-6s are higher and your 3s are low. And then people say, oh, if you eat too much beef, it's hard on your system. And it can be for sure if those omega-6s are high. It's not the beef, it's how it's raised. So, but that's a whole nutrition class. It's not what we're talking about tonight. What we're talking about is the fact that we have needs in society that are not being met, and people are suffering because of it. I know a lot of people who are having problems finding quality food to eat. We have the need for more food opportunities. I mean, where is a restaurant where you can go and you're eating the food and you are confident that it is super, super packed with nutrition, super healthy? It's not a heart attack on a plate. I mean, look at my book cover here. Worry-free eating. That was the whole inspiration of the book title. Like I said, I wanted to write the book for years. In the last decade, I've been very concerned because I've become aware of the fact that people, you know, they're worried. They're worried about the food supply. It's full of this. It's full of that. It doesn't have nutrition. It's grown on farmland. Doesn't have good whatever. The general public buy into that stuff. Whether it's propaganda and not true, or whether there is truth into it, is irrelevant of the fact that people buy into it. Now, what do I think? I think there's a lot of propaganda that's not true. I also think that there's a lot of truth to it, because I've been in on a lot of testing a lot of foods. There's a lot of foods that we've done tests on that there's no nutrition in them. And so, you know, I can get behind some of it. And then there's people who have some kind of an agenda. I don't know if it's a social agenda or a political agenda or what it is. But they tend to promote food and a lot of the problems with food with an agenda, and that frustrates me because, I mean, they're trying to get something out of it because of people's ignorance or something like that. I don't know. It's frustrating that happens in the world, because I know a lot of producers. I probably know, I mean, I don't know. Off the top of my head, I could, you know, name over a couple of hundred producers. But if we sat down and went through a list of people I've known in my life, I probably know thousands and thousands of producers because I've met a lot of farmers, lots of ranchers over the years. And yet we still are not providing the world with the food we need. So I have a question for you guys. If you want to unmute, just keep it simple. But here's the question for you. Do you have a need in society that's not being met? I'll let you think about that and answer me.
I think there's a massive need for young people to be more involved, and they're not, and the opportunities to be so seem so far away that a lot of them don't even put goals towards it.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, right. Melanie wrote in the chat, she said, where to get grass-fed beef, etc. I do scream about quality food a lot. Where to get grass-fed beef? Well, you're not that far. We take beef from our ranch over to Wasatch Front all the time. I think we sell about 20 or 30 beef a year. So, you know, if you want a quarter, whole, or half, we can get that to you. So, you know, but it's true. Where do people get good quality food? It's hard to find. It's hard to find. What about compost? I get on here every week and I scream about compost. Cover your soil with compost. Cover it with wood chips. Where do people find compost? And then they ask me that. And I'm like, I don't know. You have to make it yourself. And they're like, how do you do that? I say, well, that's why I created my classes, is so people could learn how and then practice. Because we, you know, just the inputs to put on the land, people don't know where to get them. It's hard to get them. It's hard to create them. So to create the very best food, it's hard to, first of all, know what to do. Second of all, it's hard to know where to get the stuff that you need to do it. And so we're lacking in education. We need education. We need entrepreneurs of all kinds of things. But these people earlier today that we were talking to after our webinar this morning, they were talking about the fact that they had a producer that was about 20 miles or something from them, but they had quality problems with them. And so now they're having to transport their animals up to almost 200 miles away to another butcher to, you know, to have them packaged so they could sell their beef. This is insane. That's the world we live in. We need, I mean, our ranch here, there's like 3 places we can go. We can go 2.5 hours to take our beef to be butchered in Idaho, or we can go 3.5 hours to northern Utah from our ranch to the butcher. So that's insane. And I'm super excited because this last year, just across the mountain, 40-minute drive from us, some of our neighbors built a butchering facility. And all these places need to be doing that. We need bakers, local bakers, where you can actually get the quality of a loaf of bread like if you made it yourself. Not this newfangled bakery store-bought junk that you get from the store, you know? Oh, well, there's bakeries all over. And then you go to the store and you try to find a good piece of bread, and there's not good bread. Ezekiel, what are you showing us? Well, he had a picture of a loaf of bread there. I think maybe his internet's not working as good as it should because it kind of froze. So I don't know if he said anything or not. You there, Zeke? Yeah, we couldn't hear.
Your internet's not great.
So anyway, yeah, internet problems. That's the joys of doing online stuff, but at least we can do it. What about farm machines that are on the scale of somebody who is creating a product on 2 acres of land? For most of the producers I know, 2 acres is nothing. Because I deal with producers who have hundreds of acres, thousands of acres. It's very common in my circle. But it's just interesting because what if you are a farmer and you wanted to be like, what if you want to be the garlic person for like 10 different supermarkets around your local area? Say if you live in a city and you have a couple of acres of land, you could grow a huge patch of garlic, but getting out there and doing it by hand is hard. So it's too big to do by hand, and it's too small for the tractors and the equipment that we have nowadays. So where are the inventors and the fabricators, the shop people, to build really great equipment that can be used on small farms? You know, something in the realm of 2 to 8 to 10 acres. So we need that, you know. Hannah wrote in the chat, I would agree with the butcher need. Currently don't raise grass-fed beef, but if and when we get to that point, I don't know where I would take it because I don't trust the butcher we use now for that. Exactly. And I've heard this from hundreds and hundreds of people across North America. They're simply not good butchers to create this. And when you find one, you have a 3 or 4 month waiting list to get in. You call them and say, hey, we have 3 fat heifers to butcher. Can you chop those up into T-bone steaks for us? And they say, yeah, we'll put you on the list for 5 months out, because they're booked up. I mean, there is a need for a bunch of young people to get busy and start some entrepreneurial ventures. Anyway.
Deal.
Ezekiel, are you trying to talk?
No.
All right. Okay, does anybody have any more thoughts about this? Did anybody bring questions tonight? Let's answer your questions. Questions. We've got some stuff going on in the chat here. Melanie, can you unmute? Are you in a place where you can talk? If you're not, that's fine. You might be driving or something or whatever.
No, I can unmute.
Tell us about what
okay.
you're talking about in this chat. Educate us a little bit.
Oh, mRNA vaccine.
Yeah.
They're going to be putting it in our food. And I thought, oh, that's why Bill Gates is buying up all the land.
So that'll keep us from getting sick, right?
Oh, yeah, right.
So does it, look at the title of my book. Was it a good title to have right now?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I
People
think
are
about
worried
it
about it.
I have to tell you, I think about you every day because I'm doing something, gardening, planting seeds, winter gardening, whatever. And I think, gotta learn more. Gotta learn more from you. Okay. I heard the indeterminate and determinate tomatoes. They don't even have that on the seed packages. So tell me about indeterminate and determinate tomatoes again.
They usually have an abbreviation on those seed packets.
Okay.
It'll just say INDT or DET. And if you're looking at catalogs, they will say that.
Okay.
I don't think I've ever seen a catalog when it didn't say that. But I'll tell you, indeterminate means it is not determined when the growth stops. Determinate means it is determined when the growth of the thing will stop. So a determinate is a bush type tomato. It'll grow to a certain point. It'll blossom pretty much all at once. I mean, not completely, but and then they pretty much all ripen at the same time. So a Roma tomato, the famous paste Roma tomato, they are determinants. I mean, for the most part, there might be somebody out there who's developed a Roma that's an indeterminate, but because there's so many varieties, I can't keep up with them all. An indeterminates would be something like a big boy or a better boy or a beefsteak. And so what happens is your vine keeps growing throughout the entire year. if it doesn't freeze until January and it stays warm, then those vines will just keep growing. They will keep putting out blossom stems and they will keep producing little fruits. And so the ones that they produced 3 months ago, you've already picked those. And then there's great big beautiful red ones you're picking now. And then there's big green ones that are turning red next week. And then there's smaller green ones of all stages, all the way down to the flower. So that's indeterminate. So great big giant vines are indeterminates. The smaller plants are determinants.
Okay, and from my experience, would you say that the tiny tomatoes that are mostly indeterminate?
Yeah, cherry tomatoes are almost always indeterminate. Okay. I mean, they do have some that are determinants. They've bred those little teeny ones that'll grow in a pot, but yeah, they don't count.
Okay.
Why do you want a determinant?
Say it again, Zeke. Say it louder.
Why would you want a determinant? Like, what's the value of that?
They are the commercial tomatoes. So if you're going to plant 200 acres and you're harvesting with a great big machine, you go through there and you harvest them and you get 90% red ripe tomatoes because they all ripen at once. That's the purpose.
Oh.
If in home garden, if you only have room for 5 tomato plants and you want a whole bunch to make salsa at once, determinants might be a good idea because you get a whole bunch that are ripening at once. There's the Mountain Fresh, Mountain Spring tomatoes. Those were popular a while back. I think Celebrity, I forgot about Celebrity. It might be a determinate or indeterminate, but it seems like some of those were along the lines of the commercial ones that they sold into the home gardening market for a long time.
So if you have a string, as I've seen one way of growing tomatoes, you have a vertical or horizontal bar above your tomatoes with a string going down to almost the root, and you're tying your tomato to the string. I would assume that you're doing that for the indeterminate.
Yes.
So that they can grow up the string.
Yeah.
Okay.
And those little tiny tomato cages, they sell them at like places like Walmart and stuff. They're not that good because they're little. Those would work for a small determinate plant to keep it off the ground. But if you try to grow a big giant indeterminate, they just take over the whole thing. And by mid-August, they're laying flat on the ground because it can't hold them up.
Right. Okay.
Melanie,
I have other questions, but I do have to go. I'm sorry too. I was just saying I'm sorry to everyone, and I've got the stupid noise in the back and I've got to shut it off. I have to go. We have a special family Zoom call. And
okay, see ya.
Time is this class, and thank you. I'm sorry if you're still on when our thing is over, then I'll come back on.
Okay, see you later.
Thank you.
Okay, Ben and Hannah, do you guys have any questions tonight?
Yeah, we do. We've been working on getting our garden set up, getting cardboard down and getting the compost on top of it. And it's been really windy, so we got about half of it done, but didn't get much done today because I don't know how we would have held the cardboard down to get the dirt on top of it, as windy as it's been here. But we were wondering, when it comes to planting into that, do you need to make sure you always have enough on top of the cardboard where you don't have to dig down through the cardboard to plant your plants?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you never dig through the cardboard, because as soon as you go through the cardboard, then all the grass and stuff under that will come right through. And then you have a serious weed problem.
Gotcha.
So 4 to 6 inches, maybe even 12 inches if you have enough material on top of the cardboard.
Yep. And that's what I've got to get more. I think which I asked last week, but I think what I did, getting it out of a cattle lot, basically made sure and scraped off the fresh stuff off the top and got the stuff that was, probably 6 inches or deeper. And, so that stuff, some of that may be 15 years old, but it's still got the qualities to it. Didn't really have any bad smells or anything. So I think we'll be pretty good there. So I just got to get more of it.
Fantastic. Sounds good. Yeah. Sometimes sometimes it's best to plant mostly transplants into that first year when you're doing this. Just once in a while, it's a little harder for the seeds to come up in that material when you direct seed. So you can transplant basically everything. There's a couple of things that don't do real good, like corn doesn't do too hot. Like carrots, parsnips don't do too hot with transplanting, but pretty much everything else you can start it in, in just little cups and stuff, and then just transplant it.
Yep. Now, this may be a goofy question, but is the cardboard going to eventually just kind of disappear over time? Or, okay, that's what, I mean, I thought it would, but I know that you say it's to feed the fungus and stuff, but it's all new to me. So,
yeah, it'll be gone in, where are you guys at again?
We're in Iowa.
Iowa, yeah. Yeah, it'll be gone by, I mean, like 2 months, and you're going to dig down in there and there's no cardboard.
Okay.
So it'll be gone.
Gotcha.
I have a quick question on the same note. So I put down this over. So at the beginning of winter, I put down between 18 and 24 inches of straw over my whole garden. And it got nice and wet, and it's gone down, and it's probably only 6 inches now. But when I dig through it, it's still recognizably straw, even though when it's dark colored and waterlogged and stuff. Do I need to dig past that to plant stuff, like transplanting? And can I just direct seed into it, or do I need to dig down under it?
Do you have big chunks of wood chips and stuff in there?
Not really. It's basically just straw.
Yeah, but it looks like a soil now, right? Has it decomposed good?
Down 4-ish inches, yes. The top still looks like recognizably like straw.
Yeah, I would just move your top detritus off, meaning the straw, and then just plant down there where it looks more like soil.
Then recover it or leave little holes?
Well, I mean, are you doing a transplant or a seed? Because if you're doing seeds, you don't want to recover it too much, because once the seed comes out of there, it needs to get light as soon as possible. So you don't want too much straw on it. If it's a transplant, then just move your straw back, put it down in a little bit, and yeah, you can bring your straw back around your plant. That's fine. But don't cover up your leaves at all. Okay. I think we're done for tonight. Unless anybody has any more questions, we're going to call it a night. And we do this every Thursday. Here in a couple of weeks when I do boot camp, we won't do it that week, but that's not next week. So we are on next week. Bring yourself, your friends, your family, your garden questions, and I'll try to answer them the best I can. And I'll get a link for you in the next couple of weeks where you can buy my book, and that's going to be super fun to get my book out there. So it'll be good. And the book is for everybody. I mean, it's for people with big farms. It's for livestock people. It's for gardening people. Most of the book is about soil health, and what you do on your farm and how you incorporate the principles of soil health. So, all right, good night. And we are going to close this thing down. See you next week.
Thank you.
You are welcome.